Alright, hey, this is Don with Uniquely-DOUBLEBEE. I'm sitting at my desk getting ready to do a video for y'all that it's going to be a breakdown of all my expenses and what income came in from doing it. 5 RV runs for Wave Express. It's going to give you the down and dirty on whether I'm making profit or not. So stick with me in this video and you'll find out. Also, I included a week for the orientation. So there's 3 days of that. I'll show you the cost breakdown of that, and then that'll give you a good idea of what you're up against when you come to Wave to get started. All right, see you in a minute. Roll tape.
Money line, I'ma run it every time. Give me mine, going up, need no decline. Money line, I'ma run it every time. Give me mine, going up, need no decline. Yeah. Wild check, cash roll, yeah.
All right, hey, I'm trying a new thing here. I got my little video down in the corner, but can't get this light to stop shining on me. Like I got a halo, or maybe it's just a future telling that I need to be bald so I can shine my head up like a bowling ball. But this video is not about my head nor about this light. This video is about this spreadsheet. Now, I'm going to highlight the top parts of this spreadsheet towards the end. But right now, I just kind of built this little thing so that way I can open up my laptop during the run and do my daily expenses so I can see where I'm at and what I need to do for my next run. So let's get up here to the top. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and start with my orientation week because, as you guys know from my previous video on what it took to get the truck and myself ready to head up for this orientation, that took, let's see, a little bit of money. So it took $6,123.05 to get prepped. Then over here is where I'm showing me at orientation week. So I got there on the 3rd, which was a Sunday. And I know this says pickup, but this wording here really deals with the runs that I do. Started orientation on the 4th, then I ended on the 6th. I was supposed to end on the 6th, but the 7th, the morning of the 7th, they had us do simulator safety training, which is mandatory annually. But since we were there already and the simulator was open, they went ahead and knocked that out. Then a few of my buddies from class went out on runs that afternoon because the safety thing was done within a couple hours. And then we met our dispatcher, who gave them runs. And then my run was going to be down to Fort Pierce, Florida, which is in another video that you just saw. So that's my first run. But for now, what I was doing was I was in Goshen, so here, stayed in Goshen, and then I didn't leave until the 8th. And you can see that down here on my first run. Pickup schedule was on the 8th. Oh, sorry. This should be the 7th. No, the 8th. Yeah, because it took me, 2 days to get there, so that was the 7th. Let's fix that while I'm here. Okay. So we started the 4th to the 6th, and then you can see the orientation videos on my page as well. So Goshen, Wave Express orientation, nothing showing here for all these payments. Then if I move this over here, now you can see me start tracking some of the expenses. So to get up to orientation, I'd leave my house in Dayton, Tennessee, and the miles that I drove under deadhead miles, I wasn't hired on yet, so this is just straight out of pocket. So 625 miles, about 626. Then I stayed at a rest stop, went into Goshen, and then I got some lodging. Now, the first night of lodging is paid by Wave Express, or at least one night during orientation week. So, and you get a discounted rate, which is nice. So I stayed at the Countryside Inn. There's a few other hotels that they have. I think there's a Super 8 and maybe a Best Western or something, but I stayed at the Countryside Inn because it was nice, the people were friendly, and it was clean, and they had camper parking for RV transporters, so you can park your load with you if you had to do your 10-hour rest. So anyway, I got there the night of the 3rd. $65 was the discounted rate. Then I was there the 4th, 5th, and the 6th, of a total of $260. So then the meals during that time period, you can see here, it's just a bunch of small amounts. These are like on the way up there. And then this $34 was dinner in Goshen. And then this other stuff is lunches and another dinner. So that's kind of stuff that you track here, food and drink. And then I put it under deadhead, or listed as dead here, because I'm not going anywhere with the load. Then other expenses that while I was up there, got I had to get a scaled ticket showing the weight of my truck, fully fueled and with all the equipment on it, to hand in at orientation. So this is a Love's right near my house in Tennessee, and it was $14.75. And there's no discounted rate for that. But if you decide to, say, pull your truck with the camper on there to get a load, which I recommend you doing because DOT inspectors tend to look at that to make sure that you're not over the 26,001 pounds. But if you're towing little bumper pulls, you're not going to be there. But a couple of my trailers were 42-foot bumper pulls, and I had to get scale tickets because they were pretty heavy. But they still were under the 26,001 pound. All right, so I got that, and then while I was up in orientation, I had to get the DOT inspection done, or redone, because the one I did at home, the guys left a couple of the boxes not checked or signatured, and DOT inspections require every box on that form to be filled out. So if your DOT inspection has no NAs in all the boxes, you might need to get that redone. The Dooley Depot, they did my DOT inspection for free as a redo. They were mainly doing it for a military discount because I was there for a while, and they were blabbing about things, and we got into me being military, and so they did that for free. But I don't think they'll do that for everybody, but I'm not sure. They are pretty nice, so they probably will. All right, I got my weight distro system installed, my gravel guard installed, and that was $748.68 out of pocket. Then before my trip, I went ahead and went over to the Wave Express and Horizon mechanics facility. And I got a video on that on my site. But I got my transmission and filter oil change done, and that was $370.24. And then a few business items, like I needed some extra paper for my printer and a couple other things, pens and stuff. Business items, so just in those few days, I spent another $1,162. All right, then under liabilities, had to pay for the unladen liability and the property insurance payment to the Cottingham and Cottingham. So that's what this is, their insurance fee, and then the insurance based on the value of my truck. Your number would be different here based on whether you got a new truck or an old truck like mine. Mine's a 14. So NADA has it at 28 grand. So they base this payment off of that amount. So if your truck's $150,000, well, this payment might be 500 and something. But that was another $236.13. Okay, reimbursables, nothing to worry about here. That under wave is anytime you get told you got to have an RV wash before you deliver it, that's reimbursed. Permits are reimbursed if you had to pay for permits outside of what they give you. And tolls, so you have your toll device that's up in your window, and it's Easy Pass, or like for me, I have TSD Open Roads, and mine does 48 states. Now they mainly pay for the tolls for the East Coast. So if you're on the East Coast, you'll get paid for there and back, and that's like from Goshen or somewhere in Indiana, take an RV to its destination and coming right back to Indiana. Or if you work it out with your dispatch, you get it to your house. But going to the West Coast, they pay it one way, I think. I haven't done a West Coast, so if you're out there, throw that in the comments. Anyway, here I will write the category, like if it's a wash or permit or toll, and if it's reimbursable. A lot of your BOLs will say that washes are not required, and therefore you don't have to worry about it. And then it will say whether tolls or permits will be reimbursed. Now, the tricky, sticky part, well, I'll go into that downways here. All right, fuel. So, fueled up before I left town at $175. Had no discounts because I haven't gotten the card from Wave, the Com Data card to use for the discounts, and I didn't have my own discount card. Then I got BP fuel up in Goshen, so that was $267.05. I pumped 85 gallons of fuel while I was there. My truck carries 133 gallons of fuel, which is nice. And I don't have a DEF system because I'm deleted, so you don't have to worry about that. Now, under your liabilities, I forgot, this is where you would put like your truck payment, or if you rented your truck, I got a buddy who's driving with me in this business. He's not with me in the truck, but he's got his own truck, but he had to rent his from Enterprise. So he would put the payment here, and any insurance that he has to pay on it, that would go under your liabilities. Or if you got a new truck and you got your own, you have to have full coverage insurance on top of the liability, unladen liability and the property, then you'll put that here. Okay, so orientation week is done. Now, let's go back here. So if I roll up to my first trip, this one hit me the hardest. So pickup was scheduled on the 8th. I picked it up on the 7th. Planned drop off was the 11th. I got it there the 9th. This is just a bunch of info, about what I took a 30-foot Coleman. And okay, this is where they break down per mile. This will be on your BOL. So you'll have $1.50 a mile they showed, and then you get a pickup fee that you have to pay out of that money. And then you have driver escrow. This is the 10% that they take out to put towards the $1,500 in the account that you'll have set aside through them in case you damage the RV or something like that. They go to that account first to pay for the damage. So on this one, it was gross pay was going to be $1,881, going down to Fort Pierce, Florida from Goshen, and let's see. So they took $188.10 and then $40 out for the pickup fee. So I was going to get a net fee payment of $1,652.90. Not bad, right? So they give me an advance of $825, and then at the end of the trip I got $857.90 back. All right. So they did their little mileage thing, and they thought it would take 1254. I actually drove 1304, and then this is the places that I went, and I did overnights. So, this is the mileage that I did in a day. Not bad. I try to stick around 8.5 to 9 hours, so that way I don't run up against my 34-hour reset during the 70-hour period, which is 7 days. To them, in their motive, even though you calculated out a 14-hour day, which is your total work day, with on-duty time, off-duty time, and driving time, and your rest times. So it's like a 14-hour day. Well, you think in 5 days it would reset, but it doesn't. So just keep track of it. But if you do 8.5 hours a day driving, or 8.5 hour day, so that's on duty and driving time, then you will not run up against a 34-hour reset. You'll reset your clock every 7 days, and you just keep running. But if you get in a crunch and you do, say, 11-hour days, you're going to run up against having to do your 34-hour reset sooner than later, and you may be caught somewhere in the middle of nowhere doing a 34-hour reset with your camper hooked up, and you're late for the delivery. So just plan your time properly. But if you stick to 8.5 hour days, you will never run up against that 34-hour reset. So let's keep that in mind. Okay. So then this is to get down there, 1304, and then I was heading back from Fort Pierce. Stopped in Valdosta, Georgia, because my 8.5 hours, was hitting about the 178-mile mark. And then I slept for the night, and then the next day I took off from my house. I let dispatch know that I was heading home. So that was another 555.5 miles. Deadhead miles, 734.20. So total miles on that trip was 2,038-ish, 39. I didn't have any lodging because I slept in my truck at rest stops or at truck stops. And then travel meals. Okay, so I did all my live stuff. You can see it's just a bunch of stuff, lunches, snacks, drinks. And then the deadhead, same thing, lunches. So that whole trip, I spent $200, $201 roughly. All right, then over here I got shower time, deadhead, and live. Now showers are a little expensive. They range, about $17 to $19 from my experience so far. And this is just me, but I really like my shower, so I don't mind paying that. But at Lowe's, if you buy 50 gallons of fuel on the truck side or commercial vehicle side, they will give you a free shower. But Love's is the most expensive fuel, I'm finding. And it's just me, but even using the Comdata card, you're not getting a big discount from Love's, and I'll show you that here in a minute. But your top folks for fuel discounts is TA, Travel Center, and Pilot. I prefer Pilot for the fuel, and then TA has a great facility for just chillaxing. You can watch movies in their theater. They got laundries, they got game rooms, they got, even some have casinos. Some have restaurants, like sit-down restaurants. And then they have fast food joints in them, repair shops. TA is pretty robust in that, and showers and laundry and all that. But Love's, I really like the Love's because the showers are crazy clean and they're easy to get to. And then I really like their iced tea. Just me. But and then their parking areas are first come, first serve, but they don't mind hot shotters in there. Now Pilot, they do not like hot shotters from my experience. This is just me, but I got run out of a couple Pilots when I was trying to park because it was a hot shotter slash RV transporter. It wasn't a commercial truck in their eyes. And then TA and Pilot or Petro, they have reserved spots, so pay attention when you're there that you don't park in one of those unless you pay. And they're like $20 a spot just to be up front. Seems a little crazy, but I just park in the back, try to get away from as much of the reefer or any kind of noise. And other than that, but I like the Loves, and that's just me, personal choice for where I stop to sleep, get a good shower. Usually I can find a restaurant within walking distance from the Loves, so that's pretty cool. Um, yeah, there you go. All right, so expenses for, I had to get a tool that I needed. On this trip in Atlanta, I had a tire stem failure, so that was great. And mass traffic, and got jammed up in this crazy place. But just beware of your surroundings when you're out trying to get your truck work done. Watch your six. If you feel uncomfortable, call 911 and they can come watch your six for you. Because parts of Atlanta and a lot of cities are not safe. This was a crappy area, but I was able to limp the truck to this nice kid who had his own little tire shop, and he replaced the stem for me for $30, and that got reimbursed by Wave, which was crazy. So actually, I would put that over here in reimbursables, but for my spreadsheet purposes, I didn't have that in here because they told me anything repair wise was me paying for it anyway out of that $1,500. But go figure. All right, nothing happened liability wise, no reimbursables, didn't have to worry about a wash, didn't have tolls, didn't have permits. All right, fuel to get down there. Okay, so you can see here the Loves using the Com Data card. I was paying at the pump $270.82, but the Com Data card actually paid $260.38. So that was a good little 9 and something cents, 9.62 and some change. And then at the next level, I paid 140.44, and they paid 134, so there's another 9 something or 6 something on that one, or 5 something. And then this Loves was 75.80, but you can see wasn't that big of a discount. And then I went to Pilot, and this was where a big discount. Look at that. I paid at the pump $494.40, but Com Data only took out of my account $403.77. So that was a pretty big savings. That was great. All right, and then I pumped a total, let's see, 247 gallons that trip. So you can kind of see how many gallons per miles that you're doing. I was getting about, for this camper, I was getting around 10, 11 miles a gallon. It was a little baby 30-footer, easy day for me, but I saved with the Wave Express card $109.60. So that didn't come off my, pay from them. All right, now let's go down here. This can get kind of tedious, I'm sure. But all right, so let's see if there's anything different. So we got down here. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I got over here. Ended up getting back to my house, and then I had to deadhead back to Goshen. Let's see, I left Fort Pierce. Yep, right here, Fort Pierce. And then I went back to my house in Dayton. And then I left my house and I went to. All right, I have to input a little correction video in this spot. So when I finished with Fort Pierce, Florida, up here, I did a deadhead to the house, which was 555 miles from Valdosta to Dayton. Then from Dayton, I drove to Napanee, Indiana on the 11th. So these dates over here are my deadhead getting there. And then this is dinner that night. And then this is the lodging that I did so I can pick up the load the morning of the 12th. So that's how that occurred. I had some wrong information right in the spot. So back to the main video. And then I got up there, got my camper. They were going to pay me, they do the fees again. So they're going to pay me $1.85 for this 42-foot sandpiper. And this sucker is going to be in my video coming up. But it's basically a big toaster. Take a shipping container, put wheels on it, and that's what that thing is. It's 42 feet. It was like 13.5 in weight. They're going to pay $1.85. Took the usual $40, another 10%. Gross was this. My pay was going to be that. And then they paid me this up front. So if you saved anything from here, this is where I'll unveil the top. So you can see my first trip, or orientation, put me in the hole 1883.17. Okay. My first trip, they paid me $825, got $857.90 at drop off, so that was a total payment of $1682.90. Okay. So, but after my expenses, which is fuel and all the stuff I just went through, I made $538.15. Now, this is me getting there and getting back. So all these expenses was covering my deadhead, everything. So when I got back to the house, this would be less if I had to keep driving all the way up to Indiana to get a new camper. So, but that's where this next day kind of got me. So we'll go over here. I'll put my deadhead here on this Fort Pierce one. So I got to my house, then I took off on the 11th, and I got up there the night of the 11th. Ended up staying in that hotel, the Countryside Inn. So that was $65 because I got in past my drive time for the day. And then I had to reset 10 hours. So that, and then I got up the next morning. And, this is my dinner for that night. So I checked in the hotel, woke up the next day, took off after I did my pre-trip and all that on this camper, which was that 42-foot toaster oven. All right, took off the 12th and ended up stopping for my shower at the end of my drive day. I went ahead and got a scale ticket on it because I was going through a lot of tolls and I was curious how much that toaster oven weighed. And, I was still underneath my 26,001 pounds, but it was pretty heavy. It was like 13.5-ish, and my truck was 10.3. So, what, 23.8. So, there you go. But I have a CDL, so I can go up to 80,000. But I didn't want a cop pulling me over and causing me all kind of issues. And then this is when I was deadheading back, took another shower to stay from being smelly. And then that trip, I went to a TA, and this is where I got my first experience with them. So their fuel is pretty cheap on the ComData card. You can see I paid $414.49. So I saved $60.17 at the pump. Pumped 101 gallons and no def again. Okay, let's get down here. All right. So the 13th, this day, I took off back for Goshen because I dropped the camper off and took off. So that's where the 14th, you can see, because I stopped for the night on the 13th. The 14th, and then I went straight from this stop at this Love's truck stop. I drove straight to picking up my next camper, which was going to Nashville, Tennessee. All right, now the Delaware trip, that was trip number 2. They paid me $550. Got paid $545.53 at the end, total of $1,095.53. And then I spent $553 and I made another $502.48. So right now I'm up to, in 2 runs, $1,080.63 in my pocket, but I'm still underneath what I spent in orientation week, and I'm definitely way lower than that. Don't worry about this number. I'll explain that here in a minute. Let's see, get back to tracker. Okay, so Nashville, I got 32 foot, getting $1.67, usual 40. This will come out no matter what. Then blah, 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 same stuff here you can see. Okay, now, only difference here was that I was not deadheading back to anywhere, because I got with my dispatcher and I noticed that they had a reload that was going from Nashville to Chattanooga, and I can go from Chattanooga, which was 40 minutes from my house, and I can land back in Dayton and get some rest again. So there's no deadhead here, but there is deadhead down here. Okay, no lodging, blah blah blah. I spent $46 on food and stuff. Another shower to stay clean on the way to Nashville. Now this time I used tolls. The reason I put no on reimbursed is because I learned a lesson. If you tell or you upload all the paperwork when you drop your camper off and you say, hey, I want my final payment, well, they're going to give you your final payment within 30 minutes, unless it's over the weekend. Then you usually got to wait till Monday. But if it's during the week, it's quick, it's 30 minutes. But your tolls, your toll company, Easy Pass from what friends tell me, and from what I know from my open roads one, it takes a few days for them to capture all the tolls. Then they go through your account and they pay them with what money you stored in there. And then you can now print out the toll and send it in with your final paperwork from your camper drop off. And then you'll get the toll reimbursement plus the final payment. So if you're able to financially wait a few days or a week or 2 weeks, more power to you, just to get your toll payment. Or if you were at the tolls and you decided to go the cash lane and get tickets, which is one way to do it, even though you have a toll transponder, why have the transponder, which is a requirement by Wave, if they're not going to allow you to submit your tolls later and get reimbursed for them? Because I went ahead on this run, I had them pay me when I dropped the thing off. They paid me $325.89 for a total payment of $655.89, and I was like, oh, cool. And then 3 days later, I got my tolls in and I sent it to dispatch and finance, and they said, oh, yeah, it's too late. You should have submitted it on the day that you dropped the camper off. And I was like, well, it's reimbursed. It says it on the BOL. And they're like, well, too bad. You should have submitted it on the day that you dropped the camper off. So I don't know how that works for everybody, but it's pretty damn annoying to me. So I got nothing for that. So that's $50 out of my pocket. But hey, toll roads got me there faster. That was cool. I didn't stop for anything, just blew through them, let my transponder pick it up. So that was nice. But if you need that little bit of money, stop and get the ticket, because the transponder ain't going to do you a damn good bit of good. All right. Then I went to Love's, and you can see the discount was not that great again. And it just worked out that I had to get fuel here, so I only saved $13. All right, now the reload. All right, reload. I dropped off this 32 footer, picked up a 42 footer, and this is another shipping container with windows. This damn thing, it was a beast. It was like almost 14,000 pounds itself, or a little heavier. This thing was not aerodynamic. I was getting like below 8 miles to the gallon. This thing was a windsock. Hell, even my fifth wheel, which is 45 foot, was more aerodynamic than this brick. But anyway, they were paying me $1.75. They took, of course, the stupid pickup fee. I mean, they didn't take up a pickup. They didn't do a pickup fee for reloads. That's what it was. So you don't get that taken out, but they do take 10%. The total thing was $232.50. I was going to get paid $209.25, and you don't get any advance on that. In my experience, this is just me. This is only one reload that I've done. So if you have different experiences, let everybody know in the comments. But I got paid at the end at $209.25. This trip, when I filmed this trip, yeah, you're gonna see some goofy BS that occurred with Camping World at this during this endeavor. So I dropped it off, got to my house, chilled out, and then I had to stay the night on the 15th, even though I got there before they closed. And so I ended up having to sleep in my truck in the Camping World until the 16th. So I went and got some dinner and a few healthy drinks. Let me get my camera. Healthy drinks. And then I ended up topping off fuel at my local Walmart because I was heading back up to Indiana for my fifth and final run before other things occurred. All right, so I dead-headed back, got home on the 16th, dead-headed back on the 17th, and then started my run on the 18th, ended it on the 20th where I dropped off, and then I dead-headed all the way back to the house. And so that's what all this is, $264 in travel. And then when I dead-headed up to Indiana, my time was out again, so I went ahead and got a room. Didn't feel like sleeping in my truck. Deadhead miles was 1,045 from New Braunfels all the way back to Dayton. And then they said that I was going to drive 1290. I ended up driving 1303. These are my daily mile rates. And these are the numbers that also I forgot to tell you. This is numbers that you're going to show in your Motive app. So when you go to sign off for your daily report, make sure you put in your mileage. And then what I do, this is just me, but I put in the unit number info, and I usually try to give a description in Motive. So when the DOT officer is looking at it, he's seeing it's completely filled out, the form, and or you can put the BOL number, but that's just me. We can do a video on that if you want at some point, just let me know. But the trip, expenses, there was a couple different things here. So the morning of the 18th, I got up and I ran over and I had the diff fluid changed out at the Transpo place for Wave and Horizon, and they charged me $207.15. This is usually around $400 back at my house, so that was a good deal. And then I hit the road and crashed for the night. I took off. Oh, this is the 18th. Sorry. Stopped for a shower. Yeah, blah blah blah. I had to get some clips that my wires on my battery was acting up, so I had to get these clips to hold stuff. And then, oh, in Oklahoma, my AC went out to lunch, and that was nice. Of course, it went out in the hottest part of the day. It was like 104 degrees traveling through Oklahoma on the way to Texas. And then I hit this Love's for shower right here, and I needed it bad because I was drowning in sweat. And there was this AC resistor board. If you got a Ram, it's on the passenger side, down at your feet underneath the glove compartment. Real easy to change, but really hard to find. And then, where did I put that? So under repairs, that was an expense. So right here, AC resistor board. So that went up under expenses. And then the accountants, I signed on with them, the ones, the AT PS, I think. Oh, dang it. Anyway, the accountant that Wave recommended in your orientation, or recommends in the orientation, I went with them because they're the best rates and they're really awesome so far. So their fee was this, and that's all my fuel. You can see Pilot, big savings from the Com Data card. Petro actually was pretty good also. So I would put Pilot and TA up in the number ones. And TA has better showers than Pilot. Pilot just has better fuel prices. I don't stay there because they don't like hot shotters anyway, so they're kind of not a cool place to go except for getting fuel. Petro is kind of low rent district in my mind, but again, no def over here. Luckily, you guys got def. That's probably a big cost because that stuff ain't cheap. All right, so then I got down here. I ended up getting home and have go up here to the top. So you can see, so trip 4, that was to, this was trip 3 to Nashville. Spent $454.26, made $201 out of $655.89. Getting this payment of $209.25. I spent $56.83 to get from Nashville to Chattanooga, so I made $152. And trip 5 in New Braunfels, I went in the hole. My expenses, mainly because of the repairs and getting that part for my AC. And then the deadhead back, and that killed me. Anyway, so I lost $160.38. And then my truck really started having trouble when I got home. So I did all this work to get ready. I was prepping between March and June, getting ready for RV transporting. But then when I got home in September here, I started having all kinds of issues. You can see repairs run up really quick, really fast. So just from my last stop on trip 5 to New Braunfels, so profit wise, I made $1,275, and they paid me $5,310. So you can see that's a big drop in what you actually take home. And then on top of that, there's almost $1,300 in 5 runs, a lot of miles, a lot of weight, a lot of bouncing around the interstates, banging around my truck. So out of, $5,310 being paid and only making 1,300, I was still not what I lost on the first day of orientation, first week, I mean. So, okay. So let me let you know here. Let's see. K11. So when I got home, I've been done. Like I've been sitting at the house all of September, and so far all of October. My truck is still in the shop. She's got other differential issues. Luckily, that's warranty work, so they've been working on it, waiting on parts and crap, probably from China. Who knows? All right. First microphone died on me, so I'm just talking to my damn self. I was down here telling you that I was at home waiting on my truck to be repaired. And during this time, when you're offline, you need to contact your dispatch person, point of contact, and let them know that for whatever reason that you're going to definitely be offline from 2 weeks to 30 days. If you're beyond the 30 days, they will send you a letter saying, hey, we put you in suspension, taking you off the load boards so you can't see them anymore, because you haven't done one run into 30 days. But I told them that my truck was down for a count, and it's still down. So now I'm in the second month working through that. But during that time, if you still plan on going back to them, or if you're not going to de-lease, you'll still have your plates and your books and all your paperwork, all that stuff. But your plates, they're going to keep charging you, so I keep track of that. So got a new the month of September, I got hit on the 1st for a $10 license plate fee. Now you can mail that back to them, or you can drop it off if you're in Indiana. But if you come back in to start driving, you got to have those plates back. So you'll have to work that out with them. Okay, but it's a $10 fee because I still have the plates. And then, of course, your insurance hits you. So I got that for October and September. Okay. So on top of all the expenses and the profits, we go back here. Okay, so we got over 5 trips. They've deposited into my account $5,310 roughly. My expenses to date have been $4,528. So if you take all that, I've only made $782.04. And it doesn't even cover, the first week of orientation where I was in the hole, almost $1,900. So still got that. And my expenses, which is this without the repair, don't worry about this. So this is my total expenses just to get up and running. And my expenses without repairs, and then on top of that, expenses with repairs, stacked, which is crazy. And then this is my expenses without repairs after profit. So it's not that, big of a hit. I mean, I'm not dropping this amount down, this amount, real fast. So, this number is now this number after taking what I actually have in my pocket from Wave. So after all this time, from beginning of August to mid-October, I've only made that, and I haven't even really dented what I put in before repair problems started occurring. Anyway, I'm not making much headway on making money. People, they throw out, oh, making 3,000, making 4,000, and all that suckered me right into doing this. But since Wave doesn't pay deadhead, they roll that into their, initial amount of $1.50. But all right, so I did what most people do today. I went into ChatGPT and asked it to take the miles that I did to Fort Pierce, Florida, and check through all the commercial industry and give me per mile pay for that mileage. So Wave said that I was going to do 1,254 miles down to Fort Pierce. And you can see here that RV brokers tend to be from $1.50 to $3 for travel trailers, which I was pulling, and then a little bit higher for larger motorhomes. Okay, so if I take that and you go down here, it came out to what Wave, showed as my gross pay, $1,881 at $1.50 per mile for a lighter or simpler RV. We can see that they got that one way, $1,254. They got the $100.50 per mile correct per industry standard, and that's one way down there, $1,881. Then they took out the fees, and then they got the total pay for that one-way trip down to Fort Pierce. Then here in a minute, I'll show you the calculations on how much better the pay would be if they actually paid for the deadhead back, because this just covers getting you one way down to, in my case, Fort Pierce, Florida. Okay, so let me put this in. All right. Whoops, my fat head is in the way there. All right, well, I went in and I asked ChatGPT to keep with the commercial standards for figuring out deadhead and your cost for the run, picking up the load and then taking the load straight to the thing, drop off point, and then what it would be for adding in the deadhead. So spit out this crazy formula, revenue miles, deadhead miles, variable cost per mile, which was fuel, maintenance, tires. You can read all this here. And then you got the trip fixed cost, permits, loading, unloading, tolls, broker fees, extra stops. Then M is your desired profit margin as a fraction. So the formula was this. And so what I did is I took my Fort Pierce trip, which is again $1,254, and then deadhead return to origin. So I acted like I was going right back to Goshen, Indiana. So that's $1,254 back. Then I got $1.33 per mile, because if you take their variable cost, I just took Wave's one-way mileage of $1,254 and I doubled it. Then I divided it by the gross pay, which you saw a minute ago that it was $1,881. So that got $1.33 per mile. Okay, so then I did $75 for the fixed trip, because on that trip they would have paid tolls. So you can see here I got tolls highlighted. But if there was any other things like permits or unloading, loading, all that, I would have increased this up, and it can get up to maybe say $300. But for my case, I did 75. And then there's the M, which is the desired profit margin. So I did 20%. I just figured out for like general overhead, things like that. So I made it do the formula and it spit this out. So 12.54, which is mileage, times $1.33, and it broke it out into 12.54 times the 1, then 12.54 times the 0.33. So then you add those together and it gets a cost of $16.67, which is really close to the net cost. Let's see if yeah, the next cost of $16.52.90. Now that's at $1.33. Okay, that's one way. So, well, no, it's two ways, because you're doing the 33 cents and then the dollar. So that's how they're figuring it up. So they did $1.50, but then without deadhead, you take that 16.67 and add the $75, which is up here for the tolls, because there is tolls all the way down to Fort Pierce, and that raised it to 1742.82. And add in that 20%, so that changes it to $2,091.38 total price. Then the per revenue mile is that 2091 divided by the one-way miles of 12.54. So then instead of $1.50, they should have paid $1.67, based on industry standards of all of this type of cost that they should account for. But they didn't, so it's $1.50. Now with deadhead included, you're doubling your miles, so you get 2508. Then you do the variable trip, which is, oh, this is supposed to be $1.33, not $1.25. Okay, so then you do 2508 times that $1.33, and you get the round trip cost of $3,335.64. Now, roll this up off my big old head here. Now your total before profit is at 35.64, and then you add in the $75, which I set up here was for the tolls. Now you're at 34.10. Add the 20%. Now you're at 40.92 or 40.93, and then your effective per revenue mile is that new total with the deadhead included, divided by one way, 12.54. You get it $3.26 per mile. So if you go back to what I just showed earlier, the heavies were in this range. So in this example, the per mile you must charge, or the company must charge, the covered cost increased from $1.67, which they were already at $1.50, which is lower than what this formula would produce, to $3.27 when you have to deadhead back. So that was like a 95% increase. So instead of, what was it, 1652 or something like that, you know, they should have been maybe around 1667, but 1652 was close. Then if they paid the deadhead, you know, you'd make really good money. And this is what I think other YouTubers keep talking about. Oh, I made, you know, $4,000 going this way and that way, and going down to New Orleans, or going out to Cali, or going to Colorado, or going to South Florida. Well, when I went to South Florida, I didn't make that kind of money. So that's just me figuring this all up and seeing how to, if I was going to make revenue, it's probably not in their way of doing their formula work. I don't know how that works, but if anybody knows what their formula is for getting to the $1.50, throw that in the comments, or link me a video to somebody who's outlining it, because will it be? Let me get back to my main screen here. Just giving you what I'm looking at. So right now, this, a profit, is not covering for even the first week. And then that's not counting all the additional repairs that happen from putting my truck through multiple runs. And she's an old truck, so all this here happened in September after I got done with 5 runs through some pretty rough roads and heat and all kinds of fun. All right. I hope that helps you. Let's get back to here. If you want a copy of this, just leave me a note in the comments, or you can just email me at uniquelydoubleBee@gmail.com. You can find that on my page as well. So let's roll to the out video. All right, I hope that helped open your eyes to the RV transport world, especially for Wave Express, on what you get paid or what you don't get paid. But stay tuned. I'll have other videos that are going to show the trips that I did, and that's going to be pretty interesting. And then whatever else I can come up with for you guys. Thanks for hanging around. Subscribe and leave comments where possible. Let's get a conversation going. Talk to you later. Don with UniquelyDOUBLEBEE out.
Check Castro, yeah, I need my money line. Why check Castro, yeah, I need my money line. Why check Castro.